And we will start streaming. We are live here on YouTube, Liberal Dan Radio, Talk from the Left, that's right. The show will be starting in just under a minute, so just wanted to make sure to get connected here first. Shoot, hit the wrong button on my phone. There we go. Got about 30 seconds or so. Hello, Aaron. You're first in. The last thing to do before your
show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Using gerrymandering, voter suppression, and other nefarious tactics, the Republican Party has manipulated our electoral system to maintain as much control as possible despite being a party in the minority. Liberal Dan Radio seeks to change that, and I need your help in doing so. Liberal Dan Radio has partnered with Levelfield to help us use tools that are typically only available to big money donors. When you go to stopthecoup.liberaldan.com and make your contribution, it will encourage other voters to reach out to their legislators to pass legislation to stop gerrymandering and voter suppression, and target elected officials who refuse to protect the vote. Every eligible voter should be able to cast a ballot, and that ballot should have the same power as everyone else. I can't do this alone. I need your help. So please go to stopthecoup.liberaldan.com and make your contribution today. That's stopthecoup.liberaldan.com. stopthecoup.liberaldan.com. Political advertising paid for by Levelfield. Contributions are not tax deductible as charitable contributions.
It's area code 914-803-4131. That's 914-803-4131. You can also join us live in the YouTube chat at youtube.com/liberaldanradio. And if you're listening after the live broadcast, you can leave your comments, questions, concerns, etc. on the show thread at liberaldan.com, facebook.com/liberaldan, at liberaldanradio on Twitter, and of course here on YouTube as well. We got a bunch of stuff lined up for the show today. I did a lot of work for this show. Okay, this is the season 10 finale. This is the end of the 10th year of Liberal Dan Radio. Next week will be the season premiere of season 11. So there you go. It's not like I'm taking a break or anything anytime soon. I think the next show I'm scheduled to miss is potentially in January. So unless something else happens. So shouts out to everyone in the chat so far, the early comers, Aaron, Jolie, the Mod Squad, TV2 Live, Dragon X Flyer. Thank y'all for joining. Appreciate y'all for coming in early. Shouts out to all the Liberal Dan Radio patrons as well. Go over those in a little bit. And of course, people who's if you want to support the show, the best thing you can do if you haven't subscribed already is to go ahead and subscribe to the channel here and like videos, share some with your friends, etc. I'm hoping to come up with new videos. I'm hoping to come up with a new intro as well, because I think we're gonna I haven't found anything better than Grow Left, so I'm going to be working on that over the next week. So growleft .liberaldan.com will eventually be the link. It doesn't go anywhere yet, so don't try going there yet, but next week hopefully we'll get there and we'll start working on the idea of trying to support smaller podcasts, smaller radio show,s smaller liberal media, left media, progressive media, etc., to try and get us to be able to compete. Because as you could hear, there's at least one or two, at least one person in some of the clips that I've gathered for today's show that I'm like, if these people have shows, we need to have shows too. We need to be fighting back at every single level, and that includes on social media, that includes on the radio, that includes podcasting, etc. We need to work that up. So I'm thinking we can kill two birds with one stone, and not only support those podcasts, but support those podcasts in a way that also advertises for progressive, leftist, liberal type causes. And that way you get to spread more word about that while allowing those podcasts, those shows, those radio shows, etc., websites to, earn a little bit more income as well. Hey, Jeff. Hey, Kinky Streets. Thank you for joining. Appreciate y'all. So there's that. That's what I'm going to be working on. We do have a bunch of, I'm just going to go off from the get-go, and we're going to go ahead and do, if I can find it. I have lots of stuff that I uploaded, so.
It is what it is.
Thank you, Donald. I actually put that all the way at the top so I can more easily find it. So let's go ahead and hear this week's start off with advice. If you haven't become a Liberal Dan Radio patron, you wouldn't have heard this already. If you are a Liberal Dan Radio patron, patreon.liberaldan.com or patreon.com/liberaldan, you got to hear this one a day early. So without further ado.
This week's Hypocrite of the Week is Republican Congressman from Pennsylvania, Glenn Thompson. Congressman Thompson attended the wedding of his son to another man. 3 days earlier, Congressman Thompson voted against the Respect for Marriage Act, which would have codified federal protections for same-sex marriage. What's good for his family is apparently not good for yours. To see who next week's Hypocrite of the Week will be, tune in to Liberal Dan Radio, talk from the left, that's right, Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Central on blogtalkradio.com/liberaldan.
That's the thing. I mean, either he's, not supportive of his child, or he's just placating his voting base while supporting his child, which you can't you can't support your child if your child's in a relationship that would be banned if Obergefell v. Hodges were overturned by not protecting it. Then again, I don't necessarily think that this bill is necessarily better than having Obergefell v. Hodges, because again, just like with the Roe v. Wade and Casey v. Planned Parenthood being overturned, if the court believes that it's something that is within the powers of the states that they get via the 10th Amendment, and of course they're going to ignore the 9th Amendment and ignore the 14th Amendment, et cetera. But if that's something, if they believed that Roe versus Wade and Casey v. Planned Parenthood was a state's issue and shouldn't be decided by the federal government, then enacting a federal law would just mean that they overturn the federal law. So if they don't think that Obergefell v. Hodges is adequately or properly ruled on and believe that it belongs to the states, having a federal law isn't going to do anything. It's just one more thing for them to overturn. They'll overturn Hodges or Obergefell. They'll overturn Obergefell, and they'll overturn the law instead of just overturning Obergefell. So I'm not convinced that law will do any good in the legal sense. Now, politically, I think it's great to have these people on record voting against these things, so therefore we know who it is you're going to be voting for and or against. So let's see. Hannah said Walker has agreed to debate. Well, I have seen conflicting. There's some people like tweeting and sharing ads or whatever criticizing Walker for not debating Warnock. I have seen also an article that did say that Walker did agree to have at least one debate with Warnock, although I anticipate it going something like this. You have like candidate Walker, what is your opinion on the recent ruling that overturned Roe v. Wade? And Walker would be like, thanks and beans, because, he's not very bright up there. I think he's taking one too many hits to the head in his professional football career. So we're going to go for a second one as well. We're gonna just get the bits out of the way, I guess, first. And if people come into the show late and miss the bits, well, they could either go back and rewatch the show or whatever, or become a patron and always listen to them early. Patreon.com/liberaldan. Anyway, so words of redneck wisdom. The person who is the caller here to the radio show, conservative radio show that I listen to most mornings, I I think his name, I believe, was Confederate Lion. I think that's what he called in as. Like I called in as Liberal Dan. He calls in as Confederate Lion. So I don't know if he's admitting to be a Confederate sympathizer that's also a liar, or if he's just trying to pretend that he's the king of all beasts or what have you. But yeah, this is interesting. We'll see. Hey Kimchi, how's it going? Words of Redneck Wisdom.
And now, Words of Redneck Wisdom, brought to you by Liberal Dan Radio.
So I wanted to mention how, it's never, ever, ever discussed, Liberal Dan, because I know you're still listening, how the 2,000 black men, free black men in the city of New Orleans in the 1850 census owned over 20,000 slaves. They have deleted the fact that our own free black merchants, landowners, farmers, etc., all owned slaves. Every single one of them owned slaves. Again, there were 20,000 documented slaves in the 1850 census in New Orleans that belonged to free men of color. Then you start looking into the 1850 Missouri Compromise. What came out of that? Hey, it was a big agreement. Everybody was in agreement that slavery was a part of the system. Nobody had a problem with it except for a bunch of rat heads up and then back at Northeast. Who were they? All being led by, among others, the John Browns and the Harriet Beecher Stowe's, who wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin, came out in 1852. It was in every single language on the planet. In 1852, mind you. And It was a massive, it was the primary propaganda tool to sway public opinion. And so we're looking at it all over again. It's just a different title to the book. It's called CRT and BLM, as opposed to Uncle Tom's Cabin.
And this concludes Words of Redneck Wisdom, brought to you by Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from the left, that's right.
Yeah, TV2 Live brings up a good point. What about the people that were slaves? Were they okay with it? Well, I mean, they were not considered people. They were considered property. So therefore, the Confederate Lion would have no problem. Of course, what did he call the people who... Everyone agreed with it, except for the people up north, the rat heads or whatever he referred to them. So everybody didn't agree with it. And then he talked to someone needs to go tell this person what the definition of a compromise is, because if it was a compromise, it means nobody got everything what they wanted. So therefore, the compromise of 1850 was made up of 5 bills that attempted to resolve disputes over slavery in the new territories added to the U.S. in the wake of the Mexican-American War. It admitted California as a free state, left Utah and New Mexico to decide for themselves if they want to be a slave state or free state, defined a new Texas-New Mexico boundary, and made it easier for slave owners to recover runaways under the Fugitive Slave Act. The Compromise of 1850 was mastermind of Whig Senator Henry Clay and Democratic Senator Stephen Douglas. Lingering resentment over its provisions contributed to the outbreak of the Civil War, i.e., not everybody was okay with it. Furthermore, I found if you go to slaverebellion.info, the black population in 1860 was 4.5 million, with about 500,000 living in the South. Of those residing in the South, 261,988 were not slaves. Of this number, 10,689 lived in New Orleans. In New Orleans, over 3,000 free black folks owned slaves, about 28% of the free black population in the city. So he said everyone had slaves. That's not correct. Only 28% of the black population in the city of New Orleans had slaves, according to slaverebellion.info. Now, I've heard, so I don't know where he's coming from that we, eliminated it from our history. I've known of the fact that there were people who were free black men who did own slaves back then. So it's not something that's hidden from our history or whatever. It's something that's known. But just because it's like, well, he's doing it too, has never been a good excuse to do wrong things. So I'm guessing this caller to Conservative Talk Radio as a Confederate lion is somebody that would appreciate and enjoy a return to the ability of people to own other people. I'm sorry, they're not other people because according to them, they're just slaves. They were 3/5 of a person when it came to the creation of the Union, because the southern states wanted an inflated and high number of representation in Congress, even though they weren't going to count those individuals who were owned as slaves as people and give them rights and, freedom and the ability to vote as well, but they still gave them the credit for those bodies, at least 3/5 of them, in order to make sure that they could have a disproportionate say. And as we've seen up until today, giving conservatives disproportionate say is an American pastime. It is absolutely an American pastime that we love to give conservatives disproportionate say. We did so by allowing huge, small population areas to become large states, therefore granting them more power in the Senate than they should have, giving them more power in the Electoral College than they should have, etc. We really should move, and for president, to the popular vote, because the Electoral College is no longer needed, because you no longer need to have individuals coming in. We have the information immediately. Just like we really don't need congressional districts either, because congressional districts basically said, okay, you're representing this one area, so they're going to come tell you what you want, and you're going to go to Washington or wherever and let them know, what you want. What do you want to have done for you? Of course, back then it was just men who were landowners who were only ever listened to. Now they at least give some semblance of lip service to other folks. But there's really no reason to have that anymore. And if anybody brings up flyover states, they're already flyover states. The states, people, I have a map, I have an article on that on liberaldan.com where it was like bad arguments in favor of the Electoral College, and somebody's like, well, if you have a popular vote, then presidential candidates are just going to ignore the flyover states. And then you look at Donald Trump and how he traveled in the 2016 campaign. He ignored the flyover states. He never stopped at them. Why is that? Because he knew they were in the bag. He knew that he didn't have to do anything, and because he was going to win those states, so why bother campaigning there? So otherwise, if you move to a popular vote with the presidential election, you then get everybody having their say. Conservatives in blue states have their say. Liberals in red states have their say. It gives more people their say. But then again, giving more people say is not something that conservatives like to do. So they love to not give people their say.
It is what it is.
Thank you. Anyway, so we have two sets of clips that we're going to be talking about today. We have Marjorie. A lot of this stuff, both of them pertain to hyphenated nationalism. In this place, Christian nationalism, and one of the things that these people do is that if you start criticizing Christian nationalism, at least they used to do this, they'd be like, well, what's wrong with being a Christian? And what's wrong with being a nationalist? Just because I'm a Christian who's a nationalist doesn't make me a bad person. Well, that's not the thing, though. There's a difference between saying you're a Christian and you're a nationalist and being a Christian nationalist. Because a Christian nationalist is somebody who wants a Christian nation, who wants a nation that's dictated by the rules of Christianity. And that's not okay. There are plenty of things wrong with that. Hey, Robert Reynolds, Deb B, Nearly Impossible, Teresa Tack, Benny Loco. I don't think I've missed anybody new yet. 14 viewers, 13 likes. Somebody's missing that like button. Christian nationalists, no. Talibangelicals, yes. That is another good name of that. Y'all-Qaeda. Is one of my favorites. But we have an interview. This is by, he'll say what the news source is, I think, in this first clip, because he's introducing MTG. I don't like calling her MTG. Typically, it's just Empty G. I think it's more accurately represents the contents of her head. Nearly Impossible. Thank you very much. Appreciate you. So here's the first clip of the interview of Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Taylor Hansen here with Next News Network, and I am here with the one and only beautiful Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Beautiful, yeah. If you're attracted to Cabbage Patch Kids, maybe. But, I mean, yeah, attraction is subjective, but, yeah, no. Anyway, was it Next News Now or whatever it's called? It's like Nth Cubed or whatever, I think is the logo. If these people, I didn't have the whole interview lined up, but I have clips. But, yeah, this is one of my things, like, these people have a good media presence. This is why we need other people having more on the other side, on my side, to have more media presence as well. Aaron, Garbage Pail Kids, yes. Very good. Vanilla Isis, yes, that too. Isis is a cool goddess. Yeah, ISIL or ISIS kind of ruined the whole other meaning of ISIS as well. It's unfortunate. Garbage Pail Kids, that's great, Aaron. Thank you for that one. All right, clip 2.
First off being, what do you think is the primary focus of the GOP going into 2022? What should it be opposed to what it isn't?
Oh, wow. That's a tough question because there's a lot of things that should be. I think Republicans really need to recognize the people they represent, okay, their voters, not the lobbyist donors, not the corporate PACs, not those people. That's not who the Republican Party should represent. We need to be the party of nationalism, and I'm a Christian, and I say it proudly. We should be Christian nationalists.
And there you go. We should be Christian nationalists. You know, there you go. It's and she's not, but I don't think she's necessarily hiding the fact that she wants a Christian nation. She wants to ignore everybody else. Nobody else. She believes that as long as they target their main group, that's enough, even though I don't think it is, that's enough to get them the votes that they need. She doesn't think that she should be placating to other groups. I think she goes more into this in clip 3.
And when Republicans learn to represent most of the people that vote for them, then we will be the party that continues to grow without having to chase down certain identities or chase down, certain segments of people. We just need to represent Americans, and most Americans, no matter how they vote, really care about the same things. And I want to see Republicans actually do their job.
She doesn't have to chase down certain groups. She only wants to have to chase down Americans. So to her, I guess the people in those groups that they're trying to chase down are not Americans. See where Christian nationalism leads you to? Christian nationalism leads you to, there's us and there are the others. Who else did that in the past? Maybe Nazi Germany? I don't know. Seems like a reasonable worry in my mind.
So another question for you is, as a woman in Congress, how do you feel about having more balls than the majority of congressmen currently sitting on the seats right now?
This is a trick question. I'm a two-gender person, and I don't really have any balls.
Now, she's a two-gender person. Is she admitting that she is intersex or hermaphrodite or something like that? Is that what she's saying there? Of course not. She's allowing herself to continue and perpetuate the antiquated idea of the gender binary, which, there are more than 2 combinations of sex chromosomes, let alone the various combinations of hormonal differences that create every individual. So I think if you look at the total number of possible genetic combinations that could take place with all of one's chromosomes, not just looking at the sex chromosomes, but with every single combination of chromosomes, you have like 7 trillion or something like that. There's a ridiculous number of possible combinations of people that could exist with various chromosomal differences. But there's at least 6 different known variations of XY, including like single X, XXY, XXXY, etc. There's an XYY. So there's other things that affect how one develops biologically, including things like other like the SRY mutations and other hormonal differences. So no, 2 genders is antiquated. But of course, in this Christian America, in this new Christian nationalism, actually I shouldn't say new Christian nationalism has been around for decades or more. I mean, Christian nationalists will tell you that we've been a Christian nation the entire time, despite the fact that the Treaty of Tripoli, negotiated by Washington, ratified by the Senate, negotiated by Washington signed by Adams, I think ratified by the Senate, clearly states that the United States of America was in no way founded on the Christian religion. But they don't care about that, despite the fact that treaties under the Constitution have the effect of law. But again, they always pick and choose what they are talking about when they want to say that they're going to respect the Constitution. If Jesus came back, Marge Three Toes Gangrene would nail him up herself because he was too bright. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they only like white Jesus. They don't like real Jesus. They like white Jesus, like the one from Boondocks that the Uncle Ruckus liked or would pray to. Let's see, clip number 5.
What inspires you to do the right thing?
God inspires me.
God inspires me. She's inspired by God, y'all. Was she inspired by God when she cuckolded her husband, allegedly, with several trainers at the gym? Was that the godly thing to do? I don't know. She might have been saying "Oh God" at the time, but I don't think that that people who follow her believe. Of course, she then follows up and says, like, well, I'm not perfect. Well, clearly you're not perfect, Marge. Clearly you are not somebody who is a perfect individual. You're far from it. But again, this is just one of the. I don't know how this person's like. How did you get elected? Like, how did you figure that out? Like, that's what I like. It's just stupid people in large groups, I guess, can accomplish miracles. I don't know, because if you voted for her, you're probably just about as dumb as her. You might even be dumber. But I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene is a tale that you can do anything, literally, because if she can get elected to Congress, anything could happen. Marge, the socks stay on. Yeah, right. Where did Jesus come from? Not from New Jersey, folks. Can you imagine Jesus, New Jersey, or Jesus from Brooklyn? Hey. I am risen. Sorry, I can't think of a good thing. All right, come on. Is this point?
School should just be for kids learning, history, math, science, English, normal stuff.
School should be people about learning science and history, except, when we don't like the science or the history, like when we reject the rules, like when it comes to COVID and we don't want to pay attention to the doctors who know more about it than, Hick, Marjorie Taylor Greene, or we don't want to learn the history because we're going to attack things like CRT, even though CRT is not taught in schools. But we don't want kids to learn about, the horrors of our nation's past, because if we learn about the horrors of our nation's past, then people might start to think, oh, maybe we need to change some things. Or maybe we need to make sure that we remember them so they don't happen again. Interesting. Let's see. And I think this is the last MTG.
One more question for you, the final one, is do you think we'll see accountability for the way that the January 6th committee, which is completely illegitimate, we've seen time and time again, they lie, they create false narratives. I mean, they won't talk to me. I witnessed one of the highest profile shootings in America, yet they will not have a conversation with me about it. Do you think there will be accountability? And if so, how and when?
There better be accountability. Yeah, there better be. Yes, I think there will be accountability, and it needs to be severe. That this should never be allowed to happen. And they're abusing their congressional powers. They're abusing committee powers, and this is political persecution. And there's people that don't even have a voice. I mean, think about it. There's people in jail right now. No one hears from them. No one sees them. Their own family doesn't see them. There's children who haven't seen their dad for over 18 months. There's marriages that have been broken apart. People have lost their jobs. People have committed suicide. The third one happened this week. It's awful. Yes, there needs to be accountability.
Maybe, Marge, just maybe, the reason that these people are in jail are because they committed crimes. These people will sit there and applaud Donald Trump when he talks about law and order, but that's law and order for other people. They don't want law and order for themselves. Again, going back to that one Twitter thread we talked about a couple weeks ago, conservatives don't like being told what to do, but they love telling other people what to do. Yeah, and so someone who committed suicide because, well, I don't know about the situations pertaining to the suicides that took place. I can't really speak on that. But marriage broke up. Well, you know what? If my spouse went to go riot and break into the Capitol building and attacked the police and committed acts of sedition and insurrection and domestic terrorism against this country, I wouldn't be surprised that my spouse wouldn't be surprised that I would be like, you know what? Welcome to Dumpsville, population you. Of course, that's not going to happen because me and my wife agree about things on a political level. Almost everything. I mean, we have a lot of things in common politically, which is good. I mean, some people disagree on some things. We agree on pretty much everything. It's kind of weird that it's that close. But I think the only thing, she was more annoyed by Bernie Sanders than I was. I think that might be our only difference. I know. I mean, they're political prisoners. No, they're not. They're domestic terrorists and criminals, and they need to be punished. And the only people that should have their only people that should have their make sure that are held accountable are the people who committed those acts and the people who coordinated those acts and the people that encouraged those acts, including but not limited to one President Donald John Trump. Anyway, let's go ahead, take a quick break. We are going to come back, talk about more issues, talk about more white nationalism, Christian nationalism, etc. In a few minutes. This is Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from the left. That's right.
Are you planning a trip to Disney soon? Do you want help avoiding spending mistakes and making the most of your vacation? Then check out budgeteers.com, a new site devoted to helping you get the most mouse for your money. What kinds of tickets should you get? Is the dining plan a good deal for you? Should you stay on grounds or not? Should you buy park hoppers? Many other sites are filled with information about what other people like to do, but Budgeteers is geared to help you make the best decision for you. So check out budgeteers.com or go to youtube.com/budgeteers and help make your trip the best it can be. Budgeteers.com is not a travel agency and it is not affiliated with the Disney Corporation or any of its holdings. In a world gone mad, one progressive will do a bad movie trailer guy impression to get you to listen to his show. There's only one thing that I like better than the Liberal Dan Radio Minicast. Alright, Bill, that's enough of that. On the Liberal Dan Radio Minicast, you will hear an honest discussion of the day's issues, with some personal bits in between. You might even hear what the other side has to say, sometimes even in their own voices. So become one of the Liberal Dan family, because family means no one gets left behind or forgotten. To hear those bad impressions and more, tune into the Liberal Dan Radio Minicast. Talk from the left, that's right. And I think to myself, what a wonderful show. Yeah. If you enjoy Liberal Dan Radio, there's many ways that you can support the show. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can like me on Facebook or follow me on Twitter or TikTok. And you can become a Liberal Dan Patreon. For as little as $3 a month, you can get a shout out. Higher levels get the opportunity to vote on what I do next on the podcast, the Minicast, or on YouTube. You can even buy commercial advertising or sponsor bits. So go to patreon.liberaldan.com and support the show today.
Hey there, podcast listeners. This is Demonox, host of The World According to Knox. It's time for Season 2, where I take you on another trip through my world. The world of movies, video games, pop culture, and more. Relate them to the world around you. Don't forget to leave a question for Marscat, and find me on Twitter by the handle XDemonox. That's the letter X like X-Men, DEMINOX. Now enjoy the rest of your podcast.
to Liberal Dan Radio, talk from the left, that's right. Again, this is your host, Dan Zimmerman, coming at you from New Orleans, Louisiana. To join the conversation, it's 914-803-4131. That is 914-803-4131. Of course, you can always leave your comments, questions, and chat at youtube.com/liberaldanradio, and I will try to get to them as we go. Sometimes they scroll a little fast, and I have to play catch up, especially if I get in a groove and start just rambling for 5 minutes. Then, you know, that often causes me to have to scroll back up and then try and play catch up and responding to the chat. But, you know.
It is what it is.
Thank you, Donald. And I do have this new, I mean, I think I had this somewhere, perhaps, but I had to throw this one into the whole, into my words of redneck wisdom, because, you know, God forbid somebody use a book to spread information about the fact that they don't like slavery. Like, God forbid, like, you know, we actually, you know, that people are being held accountable for their domestic terrorism in the January 6th attack on Congress. So I just had to download that one and re-upload it and stick it in the top of my thing so I could use it occasionally. Andrea, how's it going? Nick Rich, who else have I missed who has come in? Blue Pretender, appreciate y'all for coming over. Appreciate you, Andrea, for joining us. I'm guessing you're better now. I'm sure you've recovered from the COVID. I hope so. I would hope so. Hello, Laura. Thank you for joining. Anybody who, you have 16 viewers and 16 likes, but if you're viewing and you haven't liked yet, please go ahead and smash that like button. If you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe to Liberal Dan Radio. I have a goal of getting 1,000 subs by the end of September. We're hoping to get there. We may be able to get there, but I can only do it with your help. So appreciate y'all. So the other thing, there was the person who's the Republican candidate running for governor in Pennsylvania. So what's I thought I had that link up, but apparently I didn't. Governor PA. Doug Mastriano. Doug Mastriano was at the January 6th insurrection. I don't know if he entered the Capitol. I don't have that information at the moment, but he's the Republicans' nominee for governor. There are Republicans out there who are fighting, who are actually paying to run ads against him because they don't want him to be governor of Pennsylvania because he's like too far to the right. Well, one of the people that Mastriano has as a paid consultant is the CEO of Gab, Andrew Torba. There's an article on the Anti-Defamation League website about Torba. It was Gab CEO. This is from December 15th, 2021. Gab CEO Andrew Torba claims he's not an anti-Semite, but he tells a very different story via Gab's Twitter feed and his personal Gab account. Torba engaged in multiple anti-Semitic tirades on both Twitter and Gab, posting and sharing a wide array of bigoted content. Let's see. Promoted a range of anti-Semitic tropes, such as Jews having dual loyalty to the U.S. and Israel, that Jews are to blame for the crucifixion of Jesus, and that Jews are in control of the U.S. government. I'm surprised he didn't throw in the media there on top of that, you know. Gab, a self-described, quote, free speech platform, has a long history as being a haven for anti-Semites, extremists, and conspiracy theories. Robert Bowers, the white supremacist who murdered 11 people at the Pittsburgh synagogue in 2018, made numerous anti-Semitic posts on his Gab account in the weeks prior to the shooting. 3 years later, anti-Semitic content persists on the platform, easily accessible with just a few clicks. Well-known anti-Semites like David Duke, Rick Wiles, and Nicholas Fuentes maintain an active presence on the site. Let's see, Gab's Twitter account was deactivated shortly after Torba's anti-Semitic tirade. It was later reactivated at the end of November 2021. In an effort to track Twitter links out to Gab. Let's see, Gab.com. We're building a parallel Christian society because we are fed up and done with the Judeo-Bolshevik one. Usually you hear Judeo-Christian, but the Judeo-Bolshevik society, apparently. That's what we're at. Let's see what else. Is anything? He has this Gab.com's Twitter account and posted a picture of Judeo, nail, and then Christian nail in the hand, obviously doing the whole myth of the Jews killed Jesus, etc. Anti-Talmudic stuff or whatever. Anyway, so there's plenty of stuff on Twitter by Gab and by him specifically, Andrew Torba, that is on there that is anti-Semitic. But there's also the fact that he is a Christian nationalist. I don't understand how anyone could take advice from an incel. I think incels may very well take advice from incels. So, they like to group together. And then when they have the groups called the MGTOW, men going their own way, I've wanted to talk about them and the men's rights activists and all that crap at some point, but I usually just find something else that I'd rather talk about because they're really aggravating and annoying. But the one thing that I wonder about the so-called men going their own way is, why haven't those men gone their own way yet? Why haven't you gone? Why haven't you left? But if you heard the one thing that I said in here, in the first tweet, we're building a parallel Christian society is what the Get On Gab at Twitter, the Twitter account. Let's see, are there female incels? There are some women that I have seen that complain about the friend zone as well. But usually it's a typically predominantly male thing that, begrudge for being friend zoned. I mean, if somebody's my friend, that's not a bad thing. Like, sure, maybe my feelings for that person may go unrequited, but they're not required to do so to be my friend. Simple as that. I'm friends with many people who I was interested in dating at one point and then never did, or I'm also friends with people who I did date and then we stopped dating and we're still friends because that's how adults do it. So, I mean, obviously there's some that I wouldn't remain friends with because if they treated me terribly, but that's not everybody. Sometimes you just don't work well together, and
it is what it is.
That he would definitely know about not working well together, considering he's on marriage number 3. Of course, then again, so is my dad. So, and I think my first stepmother, my dad's second wife, is much worse probably than Marla Maples. Ugh, she was terrible. So let's see. All right, so let's go into the Gab thing, because the Media Matters site had reported that he basically said that Ben Shapiro, conservative pundit Ben Shapiro, would not be welcome in this guy's or the Christian nationalist movement. I think you could all probably figure out why that's the case, but we're going to let him talk. We're going to let Andrew Torba talk about it.
So their big article today is Jewish conservatives like Ben Shapiro aren't welcome in our movement. Well, no, not unless they repent and accept Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior.
There you go. I mean, at that point, I guess they become Christians because they repent and accept Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior. But, so clearly, I mean, Ben Shapiro is usually one that's universally loved by many conservatives, but I guess this one is he's Jewish, so therefore, and he apparently has a big problem with how the Talmud discusses Christianity and the idea of the virgin birth, etc. So, but yeah, even conservative Ben Shapiro would not be allowed, or even conservative Ben Shapiro would not be allowed in his move, or not. He doesn't call it his movement. He calls it the Christian Nationalist movement because it's not his movement, it's Jesus' movement.
So, no, we don't want people who are atheists. We don't want people who are Jewish. We don't want people who are, non-believers, agnostic, whatever. This is an explicitly Christian movement because this is an explicitly Christian country.
No, this is not an explicitly Christian country because we do not have an explicitly set of laws that are based on Christianity. Just because you're founded, it's like if I'm a Jewish guy and I open up I have a Jewish guy and I have a podcast, doesn't make this a Jewish podcast because I have discussed Jewish issues on the show, but this is not a Jewish podcast. It's just a podcast that happened to be created by somebody who happens to be born Jewish. Oh, hey, Demonox, how's it going? First Liberal Dan Radio Patreon. Demonox, appreciate you. So, yeah, I mean, if I talked about the Torah and the Talmud and kosher food and everything like that, then maybe, that was the only thing I talked about, then yeah, it would be a Jewish podcast. But this is not a Jewish podcast. It's just a podcast by somebody who happened to be born and raised Jewish. So this country happened to be created by people who were Christians. Well, some define themselves as deists, but that doesn't mean that we are a Christian country. And for some reason, they don't seem to understand that. Well, they don't want to understand that. They remain willfully ignorant, I suppose.
And that's the other thing I want to clear up. I posted about this morning in terms of Christian nationalism. I've seen a lot of quote-unquote experts really misinterpreting what we're saying here. They think that we believe that America is, ordained by God and is special and is chosen and is set apart. Like, no, America just happens to be the place that we as American Christians live in, right? As American Christian nationalists, but this movement is actually much bigger than that. We want to disciple all nations. That is the Great Commission. All nations, meaning all nations, okay? Not just America, but all nations.
So they don't just want to have America be run by Christianity. They want the entirety of the world to be dominated by Christianity. And not just Christians, but those type of Christians, which in and of itself is scary AF.
Our generation of Christians is not buying dispensational Zionist lies.
Dispensational Zionist lies. Again, attacking Zionists. Again, that is one of the anti-Semitic tropes out there. Now, there are people who are legitimately Zionists, people who believe in a single Jewish state and the creation of Israel, but fine. There are people who can adequately and appropriately and correctly be called Zionists, and you can be critical or not of them for their Zionist beliefs. But when he uses Zionist, it's just another term for Jews, and he doesn't like Jews because Jews haven't accepted Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior. Even though I had an evangelical admit to me that I was right on the streets of on Bourbon Street in the streets of New Orleans when they were out proselytizing, and I was like, let me ask you something. God is infallible, right? And he goes, of course. I'm like, God, when God created a covenant with the Jewish people that was eternal, it was an eternal covenant. That means it lasts forever and ever, and God never makes a mistake, right? He goes, well, sure. And I'm like, well, then, if God's covenant with the Jewish people is eternal, and God never makes mistakes or errors, that means that Jewish people never have to accept Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior in order for them to go to heaven or wherever the afterlife is. And he was like, I guess you're right. And I was like, thank you very much, shook his hand, walked away. My wife laughed. It was fun. Ended up being able to have an evangelical tell me that I was right about his religion. It was fun. Good times. Good times.
Ben Shapiro and other non-believers, they're not allowed to have a prominent voice in our movement because they don't share our values, okay?
They can't have. So not only is it just that he doesn't want them they can't be a prominent role in the movement, I guess they can't have a prominent role in society, which means I guess he wants to create like second-class citizens where, I mean, he said, I don't know if did I miss that clip? There was a clip where he said something about everyone would be welcome in our society. We're not saying that you have to leave. We're not saying that you have to get out of here. But you're still welcome. We're not going to kick you out, but you're going to be thanking us for allowing you to live in this Christian society or whatever it was that he was saying. And I'm like, no, because here's the thing. If you remember Empire Strikes Back, the second released Star Wars movie. If you remember Empire Strikes Back, there was the Empire, and Darth Vader had a deal with Lando Calrissian. And then Darth Vader kept changing the deal. Let pray I don't alter it further. First Leia, first Han Solo, Leia, and Chewbacca were going to be in Cloud City and would have to stay there because all he was after was Luke. Then Han Solo was going to be sent off with Boba Fett. Then, instead of Leia and Chewbacca having to stay in the city, they would be taken to his ship. So he kept altering the deal. Well, these people are the dark side, and I to believe that people who are not Christian could live freely in this society, especially in a society that's based on Christian ideas and their Christian ideas, would be one where that turns into Gilead. And if you were a non-believer, you would quickly find yourself in a deep load of crap, because their society is not for you. Did I play this one already?
There's many great deceivers out there, Ben Shapiro being one of them, who are deceiving and misleading a lot of conservative Christians.
There are many deceivers out there, just like you yourself, who, when you're trying to make us believe that you would welcome all these non-Christians in your Christian nationalist society. So, let's see. What's illegal? I left my church when politics were preached. Politics often get preached in many churches. I mean, I would hope it should be illegal, but it never gets upheld. Those rules never get upheld. Let's see. And what's the next one?
Let me be clear. This is not a Judeo-Christian movement, okay? This is a Christian movement explicitly. So let me take a look here, because those two terms are actually contradictory. It's like an inherent contradiction, okay?
And look, we're going to end with an agreement. I agree with him there. I agree with him that the term Judeo-Christian is a contradiction. Now, he's right. He's wrong about why he's right, but he's still right on that particular point. And there's so many differences between Judaism and Christianity that to call something Judeo-Christian, and we've talked about this previously on the show, that it never was really a thing until the Christian right thought that embracing Israel and supporting Jews when it's convenient, at least, would somehow benefit them politically. But apparently that's not the case. There's no such thing. Like, Jews keep kosher, Christians don't. Jews have 613 commandments of which they have to follow. Christians will talk about the 10 commandments and want to have them up on courthouses or whatever, but the only Jesus, according to Christian faith, is according to my understanding at least of the Christian faith, is that that Jesus died for those sins and also fulfilled the laws. I don't know how one fulfills a law. I mean, that concept it doesn't make sense to me as somebody who was raised Jewish. I don't understand the idea of fulfilling a law. You either follow it or don't, or you repeal it or whatever. But again, if that's what you believe, I'm not judging you. I just don't believe that Judeo-Christian is something that is a thing because of the vast differences. Look at the abortion debate. Look at how differently Judaism and Christianity treats abortion. Christians are out there saying that life begins, ensoulment begins at conception, at fertilization. As soon as you have a fertilized embryo, that you have ensoulment takes place there. Judaism believes that ensoulment takes place on the first breath. That first breath is life. Judaism requires a late-term abortion if the pregnancy is threatening the life of the woman, of the pregnant person. Judaism would say life of the woman. So that's why I say I worded it in a way that Judaism says, because that's, of course, Liberal Dan Radio understands the fact that, and many of the people who listen to Liberal Dan Radio, we understand the fact that there are people who are non-binary, there are trans men, there are other, gender non-conforming folks who don't consider themselves to be women, but yet who can still get pregnant. So, again, Judaism requires an abortion. Now, look, if I was going to make a state that had Jewish laws, I mean, Jewish laws only apply to Jewish people, so even if I enacted Jewish laws in America, they would still only apply to Jewish people. But, you know, Jewish law does not, you know, forbid other people from, like, eating bacon, for example. So a Jewish society, now Jewish law government buildings might have to be closed on the Sabbath or whatever if you were following, whatever, I don't know. I mean, what Israel does is probably as close to a society with a Jewish law as possible, although there are many secular folks in Israel as well who are just, I guess, culturally or ethnically Jewish. So, anyway, Christianity, again, would ban at least these evangelical, pro-life, right-wing folks who call themselves Christians, would ban all abortions, and are trying to ban abortions in ridiculous cases. Like, I mean, I think every banned abortion is a ridiculous case, but they're trying to ban abortions, you know, for raped 10-year-olds, just like we had that one former Joseph Gibson from the other week, who said that 10-year-olds should not be able to get an abortion. So, really impossible. Oh, you're welcome. Let's see. Where's... I'm, again, trying to scroll back. X-Demonox, not that I believe in Jesus being a real human, just by their own story logic. Oh, wait. Jesus never renounced being Jewish, therefore Christians being followers of Christ should follow Jewish doctrine. Sort of. I mean, one of the clips I didn't play, that didn't capture from MTG's little interview was that, I guess, or maybe it was from a different one, that I follow a Jewish guy. I worship a Jewish guy. You know, fine, but, you know, there's still much differences. You know, there are rules, you know, that Jews follow that y'all don't. And that's the thing, is like, if you're following Jewish law and you're not Jewish, you're actually not following Jewish law, because Jewish law is supposed to be like a blessing, like it's a responsibility of the Jewish people. It's a blessing of the Jewish people. It's not something that that's why Jews don't really understand the idea of evangelicism, because Jews don't require you to keep kosher to you know, reach the olam haba in Hebrew, or the world to come in English. Of course, look at me. I'm saying this is not a Jewish podcast, and now I'm talking all about Judaism. So, but yeah, so you just have to be a good person. Don't murder, don't steal from people, don't write what they call the Noahide Laws, the laws that Noah would have to follow back when there were no Jews in the Bible story. And in order for you to become Jewish, you have to be like turned away 3 times. Like you have to come ask 3 times at least, and then they'll be like, no. Then you have, because they want you to be sure, because as when you're becoming a Jewish person, you're taking on a responsibility, you're not just stating that you have a certain set of beliefs, but you're taking on a responsibility under the Jewish faith to follow these rules that other people are not required to follow, and are, you know, can choose not to follow. So there you go. That's Judaism in and of it is. Paddywhack, thank you again. You're welcome. Thank you for joining us for the stream. You're welcome for the stream. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video if you haven't done so already. Leslie, Bill P, kimchi, pasta, plate o' pork ribs, and pork loin and barbecue pork. I mean, I'm not saying I'm an observant Jewish person by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not. I mean, I love me a BLT. I love me some bacon and pork, and I eat cheeseburgers. What else do I eat that's not kosher? Oh, crawfish, crabs, lobster, all of those are not kosher as well, and I will eat the hell out of some crabs, some crawfish, snow crab legs. Woo! Hey, Bill P, thank you for joining. Appreciate it. Do want to give shouts out again to all the folks who support Liberal Dan Radio. Wes Webb, he's the newest patron. Jolie, the first Liberal Dan, Julie Swenson's the first Liberal Dan Radio producer. Jolie, Minicast listener. Aaron West, your boy Chris Cesar out from California, and Demonox, of course, the first Liberal Dan Radio patron as well. So thank you all for joining. If you want to support the show, patreon.com/liberaldan or patreon.liberaldan.com. Both of you. Yes, I'm a rebel. I'm a loner Dottie, a rebel. Kudos if you know what that's from. Anyway, let's go ahead and take the second commercial break. Once I get to that block, we can come back, take calls as well, add any more questions in the middle of the show. Remember, go to minicast.liberaldan.com if you want to answer the thing about that I talked about last week about what you feel would make you successful, what you think as a kid would have made you successful as an adult. We'll talk about more after the break. Liberal Dan Radio, talk from the left. That's right.
Greetings. This is Nimbus Yosh, host of the Percy Podcast. What is the Percy Podcast? Well, it's pretty much the smoothest talking host you'll ever hear in your life, talking about all kinds of things. Political things, nerdy things, fun things, not so fun things. Go ahead, give a listen, and follow at the Percy Podcast for more updates and information. Why not sit back and take a listen to one of the best podcasts you'll ever hear, and no one else will. Catch you on the tunes.
Do you want to set money aside for a rainy day? Do you want to open an account that will give you a savings bonus each month? What if I told you that you can get both and have a chance to win $10 million? YADA is an FDIC-insured bank, and when you go to yada.liberaldan.com, open an account, and make your first deposit, you will get 100 entries into the next weekly drawing. You will also get entries each week you have a balance. So go to yada.liberaldan.com. That's YOTTA.liberaldan.com. Using gerrymandering, voter suppression, and other nefarious tactics, the Republican Party has manipulated our electoral system to maintain as much control as possible despite being a party in the minority. Liberal Dan Radio seeks to change that, and I need your help in doing so. Liberal Dan Radio has partnered with Levelfield to help us use tools that are typically only available to big money donors. When you go to stopthecoup.liberaldan.com and make your contribution, it will encourage other voters to reach out to their legislators to pass legislation to stop gerrymandering and voter suppression, and target elected officials who refuse to protect the vote. Every eligible voter should be able to cast a ballot, and that ballot should have the same power as everyone else. I can't do this alone. I need your help. So please go to stopthecoup.liberaldan.com and make your contribution today. That's stopthecoup.liberaldan.com. Stopthecoup.liberaldan.com. Political advertising paid for by Levelfield. Contributions are not tax deductible as charitable contributions.
And welcome back to Liberal Dan Radio, talk from the left, that's right. This is your host, Dan Zimmerman, coming at you from New Orleans, Louisiana, to join the conversations, 914-803-4131, 914-803-4131. Again, you can leave your comments in the chat at the youtube.com/liberaldanradio. Come to the live stream and comment in the chat as well. One thing that I was going to do, and I was reminded of, because yesterday was the birthday of one of the members of the Mod Squad here on Liberal Dan Radio, Aaron West. So I should do like Marilyn Monroe, like the "Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday, Miss Moderator, happy birthday to you." Or should I do it as Louis? I don't know. We'll see. So there you go. My wonderful singing. But yes, it was a birthday bonanza going on from yesterday to today. No, I'm not a mega fan of Mod Squad. I'm just calling I'm calling my mods the Mod Squad at the moment, at least until I think of something else. I don't know. I don't want to call it Dan's Angels, because I think Hal's level is Hal's Angels. I think that would be ripping him off. Plus the fact that, Charlie's Angels were all women, and if you don't have to identify as a woman to be a mod, and Liberal Dan Radio. You just have to be somebody who I believe would be good at volunteering at the role. Because as of right, nearly impossible, that was a little creepy. I mean, it wasn't like, happy birthday to you, or something like that. I guess any Dan's fans might be catchy for, there's already the Dan Band, because you already have, like, the Dan Band singing, like, Total Eclipse of the Heart. You know, I like the Dan Band, but Dan's fans rhymes. I don't know, maybe when I get big enough to get the 1,000 subscribers so I can have memberships, maybe at that point I'll call the first level Dan's fans. Maybe call the next level Danatics, like fanatics, but supporters of Dan. Liberal Danatics. Liberal Dan Bandstand. Bandstand. Dan, what did you do with that singing lesson money? Clearly I ate with it, right? Clearly I just took it to McDonald's and got myself a supersized fries instead of going to singing lessons. My Andrew Bass says, we are sparklers, like in caps, like says, this is Sparta, we are sparklers, or jalapenos, or whatever. But I think I know he says we are sparklers, but I think the first level on his, the third level, my level is Hal's Angels. So the level that I'm at for subscribing to Hal's show on YouTube is that level. So anyway, back to what I wanted to talk about after I was remembering the that I wanted to sing Aaron a happy birthday song. To like the Bennigas was like, happy birthday, happy birthday from Liberal Dan to you, hey. So, but anyway, last week I brought up, and I do have a couple of responses so far when it comes to the idea of what would you have thought would be success as an adult when you were a child. Like, you thought of X, you as a child, but like, if I had X, Y, and Z, I would be successful. And last week I said there was 3, maybe there's 4. I don't think there's 5. I don't think one of them counts. Like, one of them that I'm not counting is just simply, when I grew up, I want a Corvette. That was like my favorite car when I was growing up, was a Corvette. I really wanted a Corvette. But me wanting a Corvette, it was just kind of, that's a like. That's not necessarily like I would love to have a Corvette, but like, I didn't think that getting the Corvette was you're being successful. I thought that was like just well beyond just regular quote success. So there are 3 other things that I thought of, and I'll be talking about that on the Minicast when I do a Minicast episode. I just don't have enough people who've responded yet. The people who have responded are Voltron. As I say, it's on like Voltron, like Demonox, the host of the most Nimbus Yosh, with the smooth sounds of the Percy Podcast, and your boy Chris. All of them have contributed in some way. If you're a Patreon listener or a Patreon supporter, you can just send me a message on Patreon if you feel like doing that. If you want me to leave your name private, it's fine, I can. If you can also respond to the thread at liberaldan.com if you don't want to call in and leave a voice message. But if you go to minicast.liberaldan.com, that will bring you to my Anchor Minicast, where I have several episodes that you can also listen to. But you could also leave me a voicemail message, and in that voicemail message, you can tell me exactly, and you could leave 1 or 2 or whatever if it goes long. Aaron West, your boyfriends. All, including Chris, Aaron, or just Demonox and Yosh? So what did I miss? Dan's Den. Maybe. We're trying to find some good ones. Dan's Fan sounds like Dan's Fans, and I get a Peep Show vibe, and I like it. Well, I mean, we can talk about that later. Sorry. I am friends with Facebook with somebody who is like a sexologist, somebody who talks about like sexual health and other issues pertaining to sex. And I do want to have at some point kind of a late night version of Liberal Dan Radio where I invite that individual on the show and we discuss sexual issues like that. And I do want to call it Sex with Liberal Dan. So I think that would be fun. I think that would be a fun conversation to have. So But anyway, back to the point of I do want to have people call in, call into the Minicast or leave a message on liberaldan.com, or if you even want to email me, liberaldanradio@gmail.com. You can email me your answer to that as well. What would you have thought as a kid would be like the minimum to be like, I'm successful, I've made it, if I get this much, I think that having X, Y, and Z, and it doesn't have to be 3, it could be 4, it could be 2, it could be just 1. I think that having these things or being able to do these things would be the minimal amount where I would be like, I'm successful. That's what I want to be able to do as an adult. When I'm an adult, I want to be able to do this, and not like I want to eat chocolate every, not that sort of thing. Like when I grew up, I'm going to eat chocolate for breakfast, and I'm going to have any. That's not what I'm talking about either. But things that reasonably you would be able to do or buy as an adult. Things you might want to have in your house that you don't have. Things that you might want to have as a car or on your car or whatever. My wife did give me one example of something that she wanted she wanted to be able to have as an adult, and so I guess technically it's 4. Tell that kitty to take the meds. See, Kimchi, I started a bucket list when I was 24, and I've done most of the things on it, so I think I would have thought I was freaking awesome. We'll try to email you. That'd also be interesting, like bucket list, like what was your bucket list and have you done? That might also be an interesting show. I don't know if that counts for this show or not, but you're more than welcome to. I'd love to see what was on your bucket list and let me know what you accomplished and what you didn't. This is, I guess, more of a child's. What I was looking for is more of a child's one. Just, I think, because there's a lot of negativity out there, and I'm thinking that, maybe if there's examples of people, like, I guess the other thing I want to know is, did you get those things? So I'm thinking, like, maybe if there's enough people who are able to get the things that they want, maybe that's kind of a little bit of positivity. At least I'm looking at it as a bit of positivity, because even though I'm not saying what the things are, I will say that all the things I wanted as a kid, I got. I've been able to do. So there's that. Jeff Curry, I was invited to try out for the Atlanta Braves. Turns out you should not show up way too hungover. That's probably a good idea. Let's see. Anyway, sometimes the strongest people come from broken homes. I mean, my parents split up. I mean, my parents got divorced when I was a young kid, and actually it was a good thing that my parents got divorced when I was younger, because instead of spending all their time arguing with each other, they only spent some times arguing with each other, because divorced parents trying to raise a kid still ultimately end up arguing a bunch, but less time was spent arguing with each other and more time was spent being able to be parents to me. So I never believe in the idea that people should stay together for the kids. Staying together for the kids is probably one of the most toxic things you could do for your kids. If you're not happy, you should split up. Act like adults when you're raising the kid, and try and work together on raising the kids separately. But you need to split up. I mean, there are. What was it? Who was it that said? Was it J.D. Vance? I think J.D. Vance, the congressman who Trump couldn't even get his name right, or the congressional candidate, J.D. Vance, I should say, that's a Trumper that used to not be a Trumper, but now is a Trumper because I guess he took an oath of fealty to him. I don't know. I think he did say that even parents in abusive relationships should stay together. And I'm like, no. But even if there's no abuse, and even if you're just unhappy and you're arguing, just break up for the sake of the kids. That's my opinion, at least. That's what I've experienced, and I think and I've seen kids who come from households that argue all the time. I've seen kids that come from ones where the splits. I think those ones tend to be a lot better. Kim Shi, my life is nothing like I expected. I wanted to be an archaeologist, and I was. It was not like traveling the world with a book under one arm and a globe on the other, but you live, you learn. One of my college roommates turned out to be an archaeologist. He graduated with degrees in chemistry, history, and math, or something like that. And I was like, if there's any job that you would go do, it sounds like, or any career that skill set would have, it probably would be an archaeologist. Aaron West, my parents should have never married, but still are. Maybe. Then, of course, my parents, it was funny. They must have planned this out. I think I've discussed this before as well. But when I was conceived, my mom had an IUD in because I'm one stubborn MFer. I mean, I was going to be conceived. Screw this IUD in there. So I was conceived. My mom had an IUD, and so when I found that out very recently, like reasonably recently, maybe last 6 years or whatever, and I was like, okay. My mom said, "No, I had an IUD when you were conceived." I was like, "What? I was unwanted?" And my mom goes, "You were not unwanted. You were unplanned." I'm like, "Okay." And then I told my dad, I was like, "Hey, Dad, I just found out that Mom had an IUD in when y'all conceived me. I was unwanted." He goes, "You were not unwanted. You were unplanned." I'm like, "That's the exact same word Mom used. Y'all planned that out. Y'all have said one day he's going to find out that there was an IUD involved, and if he says that, and he thinks he's unwanted, he's going to say, you were not unwanted, you were unplanned." But, my mom, as always, pro-choice, and she chose to have the IUD removed and to have me. And y'all have to suffer for Liberal Dan Radio because of it. Ha ha ha. Self-deprecating, pure. Yes, Liberal Dan, a Dan Liberal, a rebel from the beginning. Yes, I am a rebel. A loner Dottie, a rebel. Jeff, I was supposed to be Jody Lynn. Oops. Well, it happens. Trying to catch back up. When I was 8, I promised to never second guess myself or regret my life. I learned that's impossible. That might very well be impossible. I don't know. One thing that I have learned, though, with life is that... Are you the 1%? I am not one of the 1%ers. I'm in the 99%. Screw the 1%. Let's see. Were IUDs 99% down? It may have been, but I don't know. I like when people are like, "I have an IUD, so I don't have to worry about getting pregnant." I'd be like, excuse me. That's not true. So, I was unwanted in 1966 and almost got pickled in alcohol, but nevertheless I persisted. Nice. Yes, as well you should have. I would not believe that you wouldn't persist. You very much seem like a persistent person, and that's good. What was I gonna say? Oh, the self-doubt or whatever. Oh, Julie's in? I didn't see Julie come in. Hey, Julie. How are you? Anyway. What was I gonna say? I was gonna say that it's not about necessarily self-doubt, but it's about doubt of others. So that's fine, Julie. You could always start from the beginning and watch it whenever you want, or listen to it whenever you want to. But I appreciate you joining us, and I appreciate your support of the show. I learned in life, especially like in college, never use the words, "Are you sure?" Right? So like somebody says, "I want to do X." And, or they say, or you want to, you're doubting somebody. Like, I wanted to, before I moved into a house with an ex-girlfriend of mine, I wanted to make sure that she was over something that she claimed that I did and I never did. Right? So I was like, "Are you over that whole idea that I did this bad thing that you thought I did and that I never did?" She goes, "Yes." And I say, "Are you sure?" And she said, "Yes, I'm sure." Turns out she wasn't. And then after we moved into the house, she still held it against me. I'm like, "You told me you were over this crap." I was at school and I had gotten a financial aid letter. And the financial aid letter gave me an award that was much higher than I was anticipating. And I was like, before I make any financial decisions on this semester, I need to know if this amount is correct on my financial aid award letter. And the person goes back to see my counselor. My counselor says, "Yes, that's the correct number." I'm like, "This amount right here, this amount is the correct amount?" "Yeah." "Are you sure?" "Yes, we're sure." Okay. I made some financial decisions. came time to go deal with the financial aid, and sign whatever it is I needed to sign to get everything credited and get my check back or whatever. And then I only got half of what I got. So I go to see my financial aid counselor, and I'm fuming mad. I'm so pissed off. I'm so angry because I made some financial decisions that now I'm not going to be able to afford because I wasn't going to have the money. I was like, I only got half of what you told me I was going to get. And she's like, well, Dan, you know that you get half in one semester and half in the other semester. No. I understand that. Okay, fine. I got a quarter of what I was supposed to get, and I'm getting a quarter next semester because overall I got half. She was, and you told me that the amount on on my paper was right, and I had signed the paper, and she was like, I know I didn't tell you that amount was right. I'm like, yes, you did. She's like, no, I didn't, and she got all angry at me, and she stormed back to the thing, and she came back out, and she had a whole different look on her face. Completely different look on her face. And she was like, the amount on the system is correct, and that's the amount that I was looking at, but the amount of your paper was incorrect. So I was so mad. I was so very mad. But I learned that lesson very quickly. If you ever ask somebody, are you sure? Don't even ask the question. Because even if they say that they're sure, they might not be sure. They might not, or they might be sure but not have all the correct information. But your gut is telling you that something is off. Your gut is telling you that maybe you're not sure about the whole thing. So listen to your own gut. And don't ask the question. Just don't even bother with the question. That's what I've learned. And I don't think I've asked, are you sure, ever again. Because it's a stupid question. Because you're not sure. Listen to yourself. If you find yourself asking that question, you yourself are not sure that the other person is sure, and so therefore you should do whatever it is that you're trying to think of. Let's see. Patty Mac, I'm sure I want to see Trump. Yes, I am sure that I want to see Trump in prison, but I'm not asking anybody, are you sure about that? I'm just, if you tell me that, I'm not going to disbelieve you. If you tell me that you don't want to see Trump in prison because you're a MAGA crazy person, again, I'll believe you. I'm not going to say, are you sure? No, because that means I don't believe you, and I should just go ahead and not believe you. Kimchi, I am sure I need this bong hit. Hey, puff puff pass. I guess you can't do that over the internet, unfortunately. Let's see. Jeff, I never wanted kids. My wife said she couldn't have any. Now my son shot 5 ads for the last Super Bowl, and she has played dual sports in college. Nice. I've known plenty of people who believed that they could not get pregnant and then got pregnant. The person who I initially did a radio show with when I did Dan and Dave on the Air, Talk From the Left, That's Right, before I split off and did Liberal Dan Radio, Talk From the Left, That's Right. Before, he and his wife constantly were trying to have a kid, and they just were not fertile. Could not happen. Was not going to happen. So they adopted, and then she got pregnant. And then I have another friend of mine, one of my nerd friends. He again, they went and adopted because they kept trying to have a kid and couldn't have a kid. So they adopted. And then they got pregnant. Another friend of my wife's, she believed that she was never going to have a kid. Doctor said, you can't have kids. You're very unlikely. You're unlikely to have kids. She ended up adopting a kid from her own family, but she's now raising the kid because the mom is like a drug addict or whatever, craziness. She's now pregnant right now. So they conceived the pregnancy. How about that? They were able to conceive. Anyway, so my opinion on that is that the stress of trying to have a kid sometimes when you are questionably fertile could potentially make you not be able to have kids. But once that's over with, and once the stress is relieved, and once you've eliminated all that stress, and you're able to and you're like, okay, we're just resolved that we're going to adopt, and not going to attempt pregnancy anymore. We're just going to adopt. I think the stress then makes it easier for you to conceive. So she conceived, he relieved. He did something. He didn't relieve. I don't know if relieved would be the great word, because relieved implies, I think, bathroom and not. I'm sorry, Kimchi. It's fine. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't think we ever announced and said, "Hey, we're pregnant," when Cassie was pregnant with our two. But we helped. I don't know. We're going to have a child. I mean, we're going to have kids to raise. I guess that's correct. I don't know. Anyway, I just bought all of my grandchildren a guitar. At least it wasn't drums, because that's the worst thing you could do is get your kids a drum set. Of course, like, my wife went to a yard sale with my youngest, or with both my kids, I think, and then they came back, and my son's like comes back and he's holding this drum. I'm like, where did you get that drum? She's like, we got it at the yard sale. I'm like, really? So there was a little bit where he was playing on the drum, but it's now been sitting in the corner and probably gathering dust. So, yeah. Unfortunately, I guess for us, hasn't been back. But I did do the nice thing. Since he wanted the drum set, I went ahead and I got him a stand for the drum and some drumsticks, etc. So, and then, like, he wants to do music, but I don't think he has the focus to do the music because he's too concerned with playing his video games. So, you know, it happens. Sorry.
It is what it is.
Thank you, Donald. So, anyway, I believe I am going to be probably calling this a show for the night. So, unless anybody has any other questions or whatever that they want to ask in chat before I go ahead and call it a night. I got my son drum set. He knew the one rule: not during Jeopardy. Makes sense, as long as they follow the rules. I mean, I've tried during the pandemic. I tried to teach my youngest has shown a desire to want to play the guitar, and this is, I think I've talked about this too, where I think the reason where I'm not as proficient a guitar player, or I'm not as much as a musician as I could have been, is because I had my dad and not my uncle as my father. Because my dad, I don't think, is a very good teacher. He doesn't have the patience to be a teacher. My uncle was a teacher until he became a software developer. But we will always get together on the Saturday after Thanksgiving before COVID at either my grandparents' house, and then it became my uncle's house. And we would get together, and it was like my dad would play guitar, my uncle would play the piano or the flute or what have you, and sing a bunch of songs, like some folk songs, some Beatles songs, nothing new. But my youngest son, was sitting there playing this toy guitar, just a fling, 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 and it was clearly bothering my dad. He was getting very annoyed and very distracted. And my uncle's like, but if you tell him no, he's never going to want to learn. So he begrudgingly allowed it. And the meaning of life, Bill, is 42, right? That's the meaning of life, right? Or it's the Monty Python movie. Or else he's just simply spiraling coils of self-replicating DNA. What is life? Anyway, so my dad and stepmother did buy him a mini, like a smaller size guitar so that he might be able to learn how to play. And I signed up for, I think, one of the guitar places were giving free guitar lessons. So I was like, I'm going to take this opportunity to learn how to maybe play some guitar, and then maybe teach my son also how to play guitar as we're going through it. Unfortunately, the guitar that got him was still too big for his fingers, so we were not able to do that. So hopefully at some point he'll be able to grip that guitar, and maybe at that point we can start taking some guitar lessons together and do some learning together as father and son. We can rule the galaxy as father and son. No. Although he does say that his father is Darth Maul. No, yes, Darth Maul. Darth Maul is his father. I'm his dad, but Darth Maul is his father. So if I haven't told that story yet, maybe I'll tell that next week. So it's funny. It's a very funny story. Where's that? Okay. So let's see. My sister-in-law talked to me about 37 and worries finding a good man, wanted a baby. She was beyond emotional about it. She found a focus on her master, said stop looking. Now I'm married with 2 kids. Yep, that's what happens. You don't look for things and you do that. See, I learned the game Fortnite because my kids played Fortnite a lot, and they were doing it a lot, so I wanted to make sure to go do it with them. And so we started playing Fortnite together, and now they rarely want to play it. Now I'm into the game. So it's like, ugh. So now I need to find other things to do with them. So maybe when they get older, I'll have them jump on the podcast, and it could be Liberal Dan and Fam. So I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, but I want to thank everybody for joining me for the season finale, the end of season 10 here on Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from the left. That's right. I will be back next week for the season premiere of season 11. I have a couple of ideas for shows that I want to do. Kimchi, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Again, subscribe here if you haven't subscribed already. Share some videos with some friends. Let them know that you enjoy Liberal Dan and they might too. Support the Patreon, patreon.com/LiberalDan, or buy me a cider. Go to liberaldan.com, click the buy me a cider button, and I can get you there as well. Until next week, this is Dan Zimmerman with Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from the left. That's right.